very good evening to you and welcome. This is Face the Nation. We are awaiting the arrival of the Minister of Finance, Ravi Karunayaka, to discuss about the budget 2017. How is it going to affect you at home? Just giving you a quick summary of the budget. The President's and the Prime Minister's expenditures are up this time compared to what it was in the year 2016. Defence, health, education as well as higher education, the allocations have come down. How is it going to affect individuals like you at home? What is happening to the 25,000 rupee traffic offence that was imposed by the Finance Minister during the budget speech? Is all in play? Are we doing it right? Are we playing the fair game? Next year, will the budget make you rich? To discuss all this and more, we are awaiting the arrival of the Minister of Finance, Ravi Karunayaka, shortly to our studios. As soon as he's back and in our seat, in the hot seat today, we will start the show. Stay connected, stay with Face the Nation. We will be right back. Good evening and welcome. We are back as promised. We have the Minister of Finance who will be talking about Budget 2017. I want to start off tonight's show with a quote from late Fidel Castro. He said, "Why should some people walk barefoot so that others can travel in luxurious cars? Why should some live for 35 years so that others can live for 70? Why should some be miserably poor so that others can be hugely rich? I speak on behalf of the sick who have no medicine, of those whose right to life and human dignity have been denied." Budget 2017, what is in store for you? We're just 5 days away from third reading of the budget. Is it going to be a budget that would make you rich at home? To discuss all this and more, we have the man of the moment, the Minister of Finance himself. A very good evening to you and welcome to the show, Minister Ravi Karunayaka. The last time you were here, you defeated an impeachment motion, and now, again, the budget 2017. 5 days away from the third reading of the budget. What was it like this time around? You made a presentation last year on the budget, which was hugely criticized by many quarters of society, saying that the contents of the budget speech was changed more than 5 or 6 times. This time around, people are commending your efforts. People say that it is a good budget. How do you feel it, Minister Ravi Karunayaka? You are on the spotlight. Tell us a little bit about Budget 2017 that you presented.
Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. As you know, a budget statement is not a reflection of your cost against the revenues. It is a way forward as to what the government feels as to how the economy should be directed in the short term, medium term and the long term. So keep that in mind. There have a certain consistency, coherency and sense of stability that need to be brought in, and I guess we managed to get that idea across very clearly and coherently. While the next one was to rectify the anomalies that were there, which was from things that have been inherited to what we need to correct, because there is no point blaming the dead past now. The economy is in front of us. We have got to take stock of it. We have said these are what we have inherited. Now we have got to do the corrective action. So from that point onwards, we need as to how fiscal consolidation takes place, and we have shown that very clearly. We have shown how the fiscal space comes in with revenue increases, cost reductions, putting value for money, etc. And the next most important thing is as to how that we give the people a share of the future which they have been looking for. So these are the three aspects that we enshrine into the budget of the 2017, which was on the premise of what the President and the Prime Minister mentioned during the last couple of weeks. The President wanted eradication of poverty, while we included social inclusion with that, and then the Prime Minister spelled out certain economic challenges that were there and how to undo those type of things. So that was the premise as to how we brought it forward. And today, you mentioned that people, everybody have something to say. They'll criticize, they'll say good, but end of the day, majority view is what needs to be done. And the second reading was passed with 166 votes, and that I think testifies as the will of the Parliament, and now it is the proof of the pudding is in the benefit that come to the people.
Minister Karunayaka, interestingly, there was a Sri Lanka Freedom Party committee also who assisted your role as the Minister of Finance to formulate the budget. However, during the recent weeks, we saw one of the elements in your budget, which was increasing the traffic fine for 7 offences to 25,000 rupees, being challenged by the President himself. Is the government really united?
I don't think. I think you're taking it out of context. Well, if you can tell me that the President said so, because I must thank all parties for putting together a budget that was acceptable by all concerned. And it was not something which was brought in shroud of secrecy. It was something which was unanimously done, unitedly done, and unanimously adopted in order to give the benefits to the people.
So are you trying to say that the 25,000 rupee traffic fine that was imposed is still in effect? There is no change in it?
No, if you can tell me where the President has said so.
Because they said that he will appoint a committee to look into it.
No, there were areas where the fines were imposed to 10 to 15,000. Then there was a request that was made. Then we went back to Cabinet and they said to make it 25,000. But in that process there was one added thing that was done, overtaken on the left-hand side of it, which basically was something which they questioned because it was sometimes not possible to prove its actual happening. So they said that, look, that can be leading to unwarranted things. They wanted to relook at that. And this was mentioned well before. Then I would say, a more sabotage approach by a very small element of the opposition utilized the private buses of one faction and tries-outs of even smaller faction, and they led I would say, a very nasty campaign, and finally boomeranged on them because they went back. And the President discussed to say, we'll discuss your problems. And that doesn't in any way warrant a change. It was a democratic process, which we have a consultation, consensus approach.
So, Minister, you are saying that 100% you are sure that this traffic fine that was imposed by you in the budget speech will be in effect?
Absolutely.
Why was the committee appointed then?
Obviously, I mean, we mentioned in the budget, it was mentioned as X figures, say 10, 2,500, 15,000, etc. Then we increased it after the cabinet ratified, we said, no, we'll make it 25,000, because that was the discussion among some of the private bus importers, operators, as well as the Trishaw Association. But there's a recalcitrant group that basically were opposing them. So they were basically doing this particular one, utilizing not the owners but the employees who had maybe subject to the fine being made, and they said that this was something unilateral. So that's where the President came back and said, let's bring all the groups together and let's come. Surely can't the President call the lot that is there and ask them?
Were you present at that meeting in question, Minister?
No, it was only him by himself as the President meeting the supposed to be aggrieved parties, which was one faction of it. The others had unanimously approved it, and that they were basically backing, saying that because, in short, they were asking a license for kill, no? So are you also trying to say that this is a fair thing? How many people die a day? 7 to 8. How many accidents are there a year? 50,000. And you could see after you impose a fine that there has been a drastic drop, almost about 22% on certain areas, 10 to 12% on certain matters. So that bears testimony to say that there is more vigilant approach that is prevailing now.
But Minister, with all fairness, the people stood by your government's decision to impose a 25,000 rupee fine. They did not criticize your government, nor did they say that it was a wrong move. They stood by you.
Sure.
And it was a certain fraction of the bus owners and the three-wheel drivers who wanted this fine to be lifted. However, the people and even the media stood by your government at that point, Minister.
So I only posed the answer to your question that you wrote. So you were speaking on behalf of the media, I thought.
No, you said, Minister, that I inclined that the fine that was imposed should be lifted, but I said no, it was not the case. That's what I was just rectifying you there.
So very good.
Then comes to the point, Minister, with regard to the expenditure of the President increasing from 2.39 billion rupees to 6.4 billion. You had the Prime Minister's allocation increased from 486.1 million to 1.2 billion rupees. Defence, health, education, higher education, highways, there is a significant reduction. Why?
If you really look at it in number terms, you will find that there is upscale in the areas of education as well as health, but that is from a capital nature point of view and an overall country point of view. If you look at the GDP, the spend on GDP for education, it is roughly 4.01. That means the government and the private sector spend that amount. Then on health, which is normally accepted norm of about 3% of GDP, we have 3.4%. Government spends 1.89 and the private sector brings a balance. So you could see that there is a much more higher allocation for health than what it is. What you compared was last year where we made the allocation, but 60% was unspent. So if the capacity was not there, what we basically said, we give the same this year and then basically leave an allocation if required for education or health that we will provide.
So you say that 60% of the money was not spent because of the inefficiencies of government officials,
yes,
ministers?
Well, everybody concerned. We allocate, and if it's not spent, it basically is something which is a waste of budget allocation. So if you, I would say that was a battle between the provincial council and the central government. So the monies allocated were not properly used.
Minister, last year when you made your announcement with regard to the budget speech, you said that the budget deficit would be just above 4.8% or so. However,
no, 5.7.
5.7. However, it was amended to 7% afterwards.
No.
It was.
No.
Wasn't it?
No. 5.7. This year's budget
yes,
is 5.7.
Right.
And we will improve it, not reduce, not go above it. So the
how do you intend to do that?
It is going to cautious spending and revenue maximization approach, and also I would say a commitment from the people as well to come forward. People who have not been paying has come forward, I must say, because
will they ever come forward, Minister?
Well, they get trapped in, if I say the other way, because they have a 599,000 files on 8th of January 2015. Now we have roughly 1.5 million files. I mean, just to, now that you touched the subject of taxation, I would like to mention, in a country where you have cars, I mean, luxurious cars running from every corner and palatial houses that are there, there's only one person who has a tax file, private, in personal taxation of over 100 million. Only one person. Can you imagine this country? You have only 9% of the total country paying taxes, pays, NBTs, corporate taxes, everything. So with 9%, you are basically providing all. We give free education, free health, road infrastructure that goes on. So there is a nation building cost that comes in. And I'm sure the people expect this to be paid. And that's why I give due credit to the people, while there is a concerted effort from the four pillars that collect revenue, which is inland revenue, customs, the excise, and the general revenue collection through levies.
How much were you able to collect through VAT, Minister?
In what year?
This year.
This year we are yet to collect. It is roughly in the range of about, if I'm not wrong, 270 to 80 billion.
Minister, what about the government spending on 58 vehicles for parliamentarians amounting to over 40 million? Comes up to, the government is looking at purchasing 58 vehicles at a price of over 40 million.
Government doesn't spend on that. That has been basically what I have been explaining from Parliament on a question that was posed very sarcastically by one element of the opposition, where they said government spends. No, government didn't spend. Private sector spent. Private sector spent to pay duties. 90% of that is duty. So they don't factor that in. You can either in the past where you spend duty free and have no control of it, or you get duties paid and ensure the cars are on operating lease. And operating lease would mean whether insurance, accidents, maintenance on a daily basis, revenue licenses, insurance, all paid by the operator. An operating lease is the ministry or the individual who pays on a monthly charge. A total cost on that type of thing is roughly, I think a Toyota is 35 million rupees with duty. And if you look at what is paid out, which basically is included the VAT and including the duty and all, comes to 33.5 million. So end of 5 years, you have not paid a single garage bill, you have not paid anything for insurance, you save roughly about 20 million.
Minister, do you use, I'm sure positive that you've used you've used brand new vehicles.
Obviously.
5 years you can run a brand new vehicle without any problem. You are aware of that as well.
Well, that is exactly the hypothesis that a private sector company which you and I worked in would be, or you're working and I worked in, would basically go. But the government sector, you spend from year second to the fifth year almost equivalent to what has been paid for a new vehicle. And that is the reason why we saved 10 billion last year. So these are the things which is unknown, which they try to mystify and try to show why a payment is made, when that is the cost effectiveness of having professionals running governments.
Thank
The
you very
difference
much.
between a clerk or a glorified, government servant and trying to do this thing, while we have a collective team, my secretary and my treasury team, as well as other colleagues of the cabinet, all put their heads together and we have come forward with this, which I think is something unique, and I appreciate everybody's input into it.
Thank you very much, Minister of Finance, Ravi Karnaka, for his opening remarks. Let's open the floor for questions from our journalists. On to my immediate right is Nadir Majid as always. On to my immediate left is attorney at law and journalist Sonali Vangabalge. On to my left is also Faraz Shaukat Ali, investigative journalist and host of our show Newsline at 7 a.m. on TV1. And on to my far left is Charita Fernando, who's also a journalist and assistant manager of business news at Newsfirst. Let's start off with Charita today.
Thank you, Shamil. Minister, there are few concerns regarding the plantation sector with
Yes.
the 2017 budget proposals. Now, we also know that the government is looking at stronger constitutional investment guarantees, right? So in this context, breaking up larger plantations on the argument that they haven't been productive, what's the rationale behind this? Because you lose economies of scale, right, when you
Well, thank you for posing that question. I think very relevant and very question that needs to be properly answered. If you look at the benefits of economies of scale, who has benefited? The government hasn't. The taxpayers haven't. Then who has? Who has consolidated the economics of gain? Only some people which took to their advantage, not to the country or the golden shareholder or the taxpayer. We have been paying almost 32 billion off as subsidies for those RPCs. A month's losing the revenue that was coming, because if there is a drop in rubber price, we have to give a subsidy, not by the company, by the government. If the tea price drops, that's paid by the government, not by the company. They have been having management fees. Their revenues are confirmed and known, but the expenditure is what we basically have to share. And that's where we have to subsidize, whether fertilizer or whatever it comes. So what we said was economies of scale is something which can be managed prudently or judiciously. What happens here is that they have 25 to 30,000 hectares, which even under the foreign holding, under Chauvel's, Vitol's, etc., they basically, George Stewart, they didn't basically have such. Maximum they had was 5,000 acres. So we are getting back to the principle of a manageable unit, a span of control that is possible. So that is where we basically put forward. So it was a rational decision, and the people, there are 3 RPCs that are well run, or at least profitably run, and those people will have the full advantage of taking it in units. Tea, rubber, coconut separately. Today there's a mix of everything and nobody does anything properly. 20 RPCs, only 2, if I'm not wrong, 3 that are making money. All the others are draining from the taxpayers' money and not coming at all. And this is not 1 year, not 2 years, continuously for over 15-20 years.
But one could argue, Minister, that this is an infringement on economic freedoms. What is the message you're sending investors?
What is the infringement? What is the infringement?
Because
you expect losses to go on, and then you accumulate that.
Under property rights, and the last government also expropriated some of the private lands.
No, we have very safely guarded it, where we have basically said the first right of refusal comes to the existing owner. So if somebody is, if something has been badly hatched and given out, and they're losing day in, day out, we as a government should just look and wait and say do nothing? We are calling them and say, this is government asset, please come forward and pay, run it profitably. If not, basically help us to look at some other partner working along with it. So we give the first right to them. But they have to explain why they are losing out money and others are making money. I mean, surely that is not, it's insane to basically ask us for questioning them. We have the golden shareholder. Then what's the purpose of golden share in our hands? We have given 62,000 acres, or no, sorry, 82,000 acres out in the RPCs, with basically without any money is cumulatively coming in, a net outflow only takes place. So I hope you got convinced as to why we had done that, and this has nothing to do like what the previous government did, expropriation of 22 assets without giving a rhyme or reason. They just wanted to have control over, family control over economy of the country, and then they expropriated. But this is we are telling them we intend doing this. We're telling them you get the first right of refusal. We tell them come here, let's discuss and see as to how we are going forward. What more? It's not that they've been taken over.
But fragmentizing it more, is that the way forward?
Well, you are belonging to a big company. Don't they run in individual companies? You only consolidate the entire running of those. You don't have one company that is running every company. Each company is run by itself. That's what we intend doing.
Minister, another major sector in the country is the apparel sector.
Yes.
Now, the budget contains multiple benefits for the apparel and textile sector. Like you said, the formation of a textile cluster. But we have seen in the past few years, several companies in the Kattanayake Free Trade Zone have closed their doors. There's been an outflow of foreign direct investment. These companies, of course, say that there is a lack of support from the BOI in dealing with unions. Does the government have a plan to address that?
I don't think there's a problem of that nature. It may be a hands of some inefficient people, but overall the country has grown in quantity and quality. So the revenue is coming in, but not in the desired manner it would be. But certainly we have addressed many issues of going sophistication in getting new technology, robotics into the system, and bringing efficiencies of economies of efficiency coming into the industry. So that will help to increase competitiveness and bring in a better return so they can plow back that into the future.
At the same time, Sri Lanka there has been an increase in FDI in the second quarter of 2016, but between 2001 and 2016, Sri Lanka has averaged foreign direct investment inflows of about 128 million US dollars. Is this a concern? Where would you like that figure to be?
Thank you, Nadine. I think the question that needs to be answered there is from this point. The investments we would like to see roughly $4 to $5 billion coming in the first 2-3 years, and subsequently looking at $8 to $10 billion coming per year, because that is where the momentum of growth takes place. Now, we have not calculated government takes a loan and then spends it on infrastructure and say that's FDI. That was what the past government was doing. But even with that, you show what a dismal picture it was. It was not 128 million, it was roughly 1,200 million last year, dollars, etc. But what was wrong there is that that was not FDI. That was government borrowing from the overseas and bringing in as if it was FDI that came in. So, you borrow on behalf of the people, then you basically say bring an investment in which is construction of road, and you say that was FDI. How can that be FDI when the people of the country have to pay that loan off? FDI is completely foreign direct investments that come in, which doesn't have any payback. It only has dividends and all those things that go out. So you mix your infrastructure development with borrowed capital, and you say that is FDI. You're only making, I would say, wrong statistics. Like the growth rate of 6.9% that was shown in the 2014, when it was rebased to 3.4%.
Minister, there's also plans through the the Sustainable Development Act to bring in a policy development office.
Yes.
How will this impact the role of the Board of Investment? Because right now the Board of Investment is viewed as your one-stop shop for everything foreign direct investment related. When you add this another level of bureaucracy, will that have a negative impact on?
Not exactly. It was Agency for Development which amalgamates the BOI, the EDB and the Tourist Board. which are three critical thrust industries or three main institutions which get investments off the ground. Now this agency of development in the future would basically approve a BUI project not less than not more than 10 working days, which is 2 weeks in normally Saturday, Sunday, so no excuses can be given. We go on the hypothesis that you give approval in the given days, that is 10 days. If you don't, it's deemed that the approval has been given. We put the onus on the person who is supposed to be giving the approval. So there is no wait and see policy. Either you say yes or no. If not, why?
Don't you think
that is the basis that we are working on, because we look at Singapore and say, I say companies formed in 2 hours. We are doing it the same now. Then you look at them and say, okay, they go and have an investment and they are able to get everything done in 2 weeks. We are basically saying 10 working days. We are taking the layer of inefficiency, bureaucratic discretionary powers away and saying it is yes or no. Now we need to get out of this. I mean, private sector, that's the spirit. Government gets the benefit, the people get the benefit of quick decision making. Lethargic, procrastinated, convoluted decision making only prolongs agony, and that leads to corruption. That is what we want to completely eradicate.
Minister Karunanayake, when speaking of Budget 2017, you said the importance of consistency, coherence. I'd also like to add in another adjective, inclusiveness.
Yes.
How has the 2017 budget proposed to make allocations for persons with disability living across Sri Lanka, given the fact that there are a wide range of issues they face, such as accessibility, transport, women and children's welfare, educational challenges? There are the statutory protections on the one hand, but the implementation is very poor. We see this happening on a daily basis. How does your budget propose to assist these people who are also citizens of this country?
When you mention, Sunal, disability, that is, who are ably different, is that what you say?
Yes.
Right, because on that basis, for the first time, I think the budget has gone into and addressed matters that have never been looked at before. If you look at, I don't want to separately categorize them, that's why I said ably, you use the word differently able people, and that we have increased funds of almost 150%. We have looked at people who never got funds before. We have increased almost 300%, like the people who can't see and hear. They have got a tremendous boost that is there. Then for mobility, sometimes going into public places, you don't have the necessary things that are legally supposed to be given. We're given those mandates that they should be taking place. And I must say, across all governments, even in the last 10, 12 years, have been trying to attempt to get those things done. We only kept it by doing everything immediately rather than holding on further. So I think they have been given a due share from even, people who are terminally ill, who are children who are physically handicapped in many areas which are not even thought of. I think we have gone to that extent of assisting them.
So you think that Budget 2017 does look into their rights as well?
Oh, very humanly we have looked into that.
Mr. Karunanayake,
I mean, we would have loved to give more, but then in priority scale there is a limit that we can give, and certainly that concerned people have been looked into.
Ms. There were media reports that saying that there have been attempts to take the EPF and the ETF away from the central bank and to bring it under the treasury. Is this correct? Is this true?
What media reports? One media will say yes, the others will say no. End of the day, who has said what?
That's why I'm asking for a clarification.
As for us, all we can basically say is it is nonsensical what we basically say, because what we have basically said, liability management would be basically a finance ministry control. The certain organization changes will take place in institutions like it's happening in the ministries, and what is expected to be done, which is legislatively there, is what that they will be. So central bank will play a regulatory role that they expected. But this was highly politicized in the last 11-12 years, and through that dominance, it lost its serenity that was there, or the professionalism that was there. And now we are doing the corrective action. which basically leads to having certain heartburns that are there, because some people felt that they had it all, or they were in another world.
So because there were problems before the central bank handling the EPF and ETF funds, the government now considers to put it under the treasury. Is that what you're trying to say?
Not
Minister?
exactly. EPF was not under the central bank. ETF is under the Labour.
Yeah.
So there's nothing to bring back. It was not in the central bank.
So
these are
is the government
The EPF is managed by the central bank.
Is the
EPF.
government considering
ETF is not managed by central bank.
EPF.
is
Yes.
managed.
Yes.
So is the
EPF
government considering bringing this under the treasury?
No, it is being brought under a pension, centralized pension fund, which has the central bank, which has the finance ministry, which has the president, representative, prime minister, the unions, all of them, because it is not something that one person or any individual can, one unit can decide. It's a collective process, and we want transparency at its maximum. Because there have been many things that are going on. We are basically advocating transparency. And
However, the Minister of Labour, you asked Charita which paper had this, so I will quote the paper as well, the Sunday Times. The Minister of Labour, W.D.J. Senaratne, who is the minister in charge, speaking to the Sunday Times, had said that the proposal to formulate a private sector pension scheme was under discussion after bringing the EPF and ETF under the Treasury. You are Minister of Finance.
He must be having memories of the past government that tried to take it upon.
A member of your cabinet.
That's what I said. That's what I said. Unfortunately, he must be remembering what was there in the previous government. Because as for us, there is no such discussion that was there. If it's in the cabinet, he'll know that it was not discussed. And I don't think Mr. Senaratne, who is a very senior member, would say something. That's why I basically defended these actions. Because during Mr. Rajapaksa's time, they did try to take it on. And basically it was done in secrecy. But here we are done openly by saying this is the way forward. We are bringing everybody together in the process.
So the ETF is coming under whose purview right now?
Centralized pension fund. There no individual it is coming. Everybody involved in that running of that fund.
There is 218.5 billion rupees in the pension fund with 2.5 million active members, Minister Karunayaka. To just refresh your memory, it is now managed by the National Policy and Economic Affairs Ministry, which is under the Prime Minister.
So that's the central bank.
That is central bank.
So that it is not a pension fund. Pensions are basically administered. It is a payout every year from the budget. So that is nothing to be managed anywhere. It is a contingent liability that is there, which is appropriated every year. EPF doesn't have 280, it has 1.6 trillion. ETF, which is labour-led, has roughly, I think, if I'm
So
not
what are you
wrong-
trying to do? Are you trying to introduce a new pension scheme for the private sector?
No,
or what are you trying to do?
what basically happens was that we are consolidated today. Haphazard EPF, ETF spending in the past have been used to buy shares of companies. The loss, the impairment that has taken place is paid by the people of the country.
So it doesn't happen now.
No, it doesn't happen. Unlike the lot of noise that has been made, you could see that it is even a notional thing. Faraz has been very active on these areas. I'm wondering as to why he's quiet, but I can.
He will be momentarily.
I'll preempt him to ask the question, and that's why I'm basically saying that what went on for last couple of years doesn't need to be compared to say it happened then, so why should it not happen now? We are saying it won't happen now, and this is what happened in the past.
So your government, yes, Faraz, yes, please go ahead. Yes.
No, that I preempted you, no?
Well, thank you. I wasn't sure whether I ought to be asking these or not. But anyway, here we go.
I know you won't have the show without asking that.
So
That's why.
So the EPF, it's quite all right for them to buy in the secondary market.
EPF.
Yeah.
No, we basically have been saying there's a primary market which the captive sources they all belong to. Then there's a secondary market that needs to mobilize funds. And then basically you have the general market that basically plays around with it.
So what about all the weeks when the EPF didn't bid at the primary level?
That has been that has been basically stopped now because of certain officials that have been there in the past regime that are trying to strangulate the cash supply.
So
And
what did you all do? Did you
so
get rid of the
that's why
chief dealers?
that's why
or
we are
what?
going through some. That's why we are going through. We basically would like to ask the same officials that said can then are saying can't now. They had the Greek bonds, which we lost about 2 to 3 billion rupees. Then we had the hedging, which we lost almost about 110 billion rupees. Then you had Brazil houses and New York houses being bought. Who approved this? We are basically asking private placement, which there's We are the only government that we confronted problems within our area, and we opened it not to the Supreme Court but to areas of bribery and corruption, into special committees. Still not happy.
Minister,
We are still not happy. We went into COPE, all those things. Then you have the private placement that had gone from 2006 to 2015, which basically has been shown that there is losses that have taken place physically as opposed to notional that has been shown by the media. So all these are things that matters, that we would like to see a very clean, transparent, and answer those questions rather than only dance around with the media. So we have been not in any way trying to cover up anything. We have gone twice to the Committee of Public Enterprise, be very open. You have been openly. That's the sense of democracy and the freedom.
You spoke about several malpractices and discrepancies that took place in the previous regime. However, you forgot to mention what happened with your regime as well.
That's why we said. That's why he said we went twice to the COPE. We went to Supreme Court, bribery, corruption, special committee. What more have we got to do? We are done in our. We are done.
How about getting the money back? These guys,
So
these are not
now
notional.
you basically are
Minister.
asking us a question.
Yeah.
You say where the loss is. You tell them. Then basically you are basically making a noise by somebody said something. You tell me where the loss is.
So
Then
I
we
trying
go
to say,
off.
Minister,
So why not have a forensic analysis of it all? Then
so
then
that's
it'll be black
exactly.
and white.
You all have.
But
You all have done.
you're-
You all have been over the last 1.5 years doing the forensic study every day. So why don't you say
Is it the responsibility of the government to
No,
hold a
that's
forensic
what
study?
that's what we did. We went to
What-
Supreme
what
Court.
about the court
We went to
reports that
Supreme
came out,
Court.
Minister?
We went to bribery and corruption. We went into COPE twice. Gunasekharas and this thing, and we are given all the everything open. And you could see there are statements that have been different to what the central bank has said that has been quoted. MPs that are mentioned, it was 2 camps that were there. All of them have given equal public. We are not hidden anything. Unlike what has gone in the past, which we are trying to say, okay, you have made undue share of publicity, well and good. That's the transparency that we ask for and we give. If that is the case, you compare with what, if this is supposed to be on a notional loss, then what is the actual loss that has taken place? That's what we are trying to compare.
What about the loss that was indicated by the Auditor General?
Then he himself, in that statement, why are you only taking things out of context? He said, I basically say this could be the loss, but I am not a judgment. I can't properly say that whether it's right or wrong.
Then why did the COPE report, committee report,
That
which
is
your deputy
that is
ministers are
exactly-
also involved, said that there is some problem with regard
No,
to
there is a problem. Otherwise, there is no smoke without fire. So on that basis, we open it up. Please tell us where the loss is.
Minister, in fact, we did not want to ask you questions about the bond issue or scam
No,
that took
but-
place,
no, but
because we
it's
want
not-
to focus our
but
attention
Minister,
on
the Auditor
budget
General-
2017.
I appreciate.
However,
It will come some or the other before the end of the day. It will come. So I want to
No,
be
we
upfront.
did not
by
want
saying
to
we are
talk
not
about
there
it.
to hide anything.
Yeah, we did not want to talk about it because you
Minister,
brought it up, Minister. Your governor, Mr. Dr. Idris Kumaraswamy, speaking to the media recently, said that they have taken action against the company in question, Perpetual Treasuries.
Twice.
You are the Minister of Finance. Tell us what sort of action have you all taken?
So that's very good. The governor of the central bank has said he has taken action. Let it come on. The media is free to report whatever the action.
But the governor is very silent about it. He said that he
so
does not want to say.
ask him. He's the governor who you have mentioned and
You're the
quoted him.
minister in charge.
I'm not the minister. In
I know you're not the minister, but you're the minister of Finance in Sri
then
Lanka.
you're asking me, but I am collectively held responsible. I like the situation that we have opened it up. Come and check what
So
it
there is a problem with regard to this bond transaction.
Well, that is what the media is showing, and we have opened
It's
it up.
not only the
And we-
media, come on.
It's the governor of the
We
Central
are
Bank
basically
saying that.
look, you all are making a mountain over a molehill. Tell where the loss is.
The Auditor General says that on
Auditor
the day
General
that it was,
Auditor
on the
General
day,
says,
Minister, with
and
all
he,
due respect,
and he also
says,
corroborates
no, no.
by saying he is not competent enough to judge whether
He
it is
is-
right or
what
wrong.
he said is that he is not going to speculate on what the eventual loss is. But on the day, he says that it's 1.6 billion.
I'm sorry, you're mischievously distorting. What he said was, I don't have the professional skills to say what the attributed loss would be, because it was a notional myth that is
Let's
shown.
say Minister.
No,
Auditor
I'm
General
sorry,
was-
I
okay.
take umbrage of
Right,
fact
okay.
that why it was shown.
Right. Let's say
because
Auditor
his
General
own
said
words
that- okay,
say that
let's-
he is not
let's-
professionally competent.
Absolutely. Okay. Let's keep what the Auditor General set aside. Keep that aside for the moment. Let's put it under the carpet for the moment. What
No,
about
no,
the
don't,
COPE? What about
we
the
don't
COPE?
want
What
to.
about the- what about
We
the
don't
COPE-
want to put
what
it
about
under
the
the
COPE
carpet.
report? What about the conclusions and recommendations that were made in the COPE report?
So let it go through. It has been referred to the Attorney General by the Prime Minister, by the President, with the two highest in the country. So why should we basically take things out of context when we have done everything possible to make it as transparent as it could be? That's the difference between us and also what went on in the past. If I at this moment say, okay, here it is, now look at the past and try to compare, you will say, look, you have been elected to change that. We very well, yes. Did you manage for 11 years to able to have one statement uttered what was there in the past? No. But now you can do it. That's the sense of openness we have done.
Thank you very much, Minister of Finance Ravi Karunaka, for his thoughts on the first and second rounds. We in fact deviated slightly on the bond scam that took place, the bond issue that took place in February last year. However, our focus tonight is on the budget 2017. Will the budget 2017 make you rich at home? All this and more after this short commercial break. Stay connected, stay with Face the Nation. We will be also talking about the tabs that were supposed to be given to the advanced level students of this country. Is it the priority right now? All this and more after this short commercial break. Stay connected, stay with Face the Nation. Welcome back. This is Face the Nation. Minister Ravi Karunaka, what was the thinking of the government when you said in Parliament that you want to provide tabs for A-level students in the country? What was your thinking? What was the motive behind it?
Our thinking was to ensure that the younger generation get technology, because they are very technology savvy. You know, our generation, what we know and what, say, our children who are 15, 16, 20 years know are 300% more than what we know. The generations that come in thereafter, I mean, their advanced technology is so great that what we thought was providing them with the opportunity to meet up with the technological gap that is there. So we thought, let's use the tabs as a method of getting new technology given to these people. Why we looked at the first A-level group instead of the last? Because there's no point second year going into that. So we looked at the first year, 175,000 and 27,000 teachers in order to provide them and show the direction that this is the way the government wants to go forward. And this is the way we will take it forward.
Minister, with regard to these tabs in question, you are an individual as a cabinet minister, very tech savvy. I'm positive that you are an individual who's always on the ball and you know exactly what's going on in the world. However, your government increases the telecommunication levy, making it very difficult for the rural population in Sri Lanka, the A-level students, to log on to the web and then browse. A need. If you have a tab, if you have a smartphone, this is what they do. If they are to look into new technology, they have to be able to log on to the internet. However, your government has been very difficult.
Yeah, but that is again, aren't you presupposing a problem rather than actually facing the problem? The thing, tabs have yet to be given, and for education what we intend doing is not known. So what we basically want to do was to give them a certain thing for education, not for misuse. Because at the moment you have...
How can they even log on to the internet if the prices are very high?
No, but then the Wi-Fi will be provided where the schools and located around, so that's a free service that is there. So then where does the cost come in? So this is why I say it's just mischievous. Anything which is given...
So where is the allocation there for the Wi-Fi? And
5 billion allocated in the government budget.
5 million rupees alone is enough?
5 billion, if you multiply the figure that we have got, we need to go through tender process, etc. But at the moment we use the figure that we think as a base price and go forward. So for that amount of users, we basically...
5 million across the country?
5 billion.
5 billion?
Yeah. So that we, as well as the telecom companies are supposed to be developing their infrastructure. So anybody who doesn't will be made to pay for it. We are given licenses not for them to keep, given a certain area. The entire country has to be covered. If not, take it back. Now that doesn't mean that we are expropriating. You are given a license to do a job, and if you don't do, then you have got to basically pay, because you are given that license for basically giving the benefit to the entire country, not to a particular district or electorate.
Given the cost of living in Sri Lanka, what made you think that these students will not sell their tabs in the market and get the money back? Do you think that its purpose
it won't
will
be possible
served?
because they'll be able to do only for the education. is not for, if you look at government service, how many places they are on various things, having them cookery demonstrations on the websites, etc. And that is this thing, they are on Facebook, so all the nonsensical things happen during office hours. So that is blocked now. What we want to do is to ensure that they do it for their own paperless office activities. And that's what we are maybe moving into.
So will the curriculum also change with these tabs being reduced?
Well, instead of, you'll basically go into tomorrow's technology, which will help everything on e-learning. And that would basically mean to take away from, the school improvements, everything will happen, so that even if there is a lack of teachers, you have the advantage that they can learn. Because if you look at the people who hacked the president's site, was not from Colombo 7 or Colombo, it was from a remote outstation in Hantana. Those are the people that hacked. And you saw the president basically meeting him and saying, look, if these skills are contributed into nation development, how much more things can be done? So that's where we looked at if the outstations can have, without being, without providing the education that they so deserve, able to provide with such things. But sky is the limit. Then today we went into London Stock Exchange, which opened their office having 600 seats in Colombo. In London Stock Exchange doing their capital markets here. And when Prime Minister and myself, we were going around asking where you were coming on. They were coming from Monragala, they were coming from Kandy, Matara, Jaffna, coming from Gaul. I mean, it was from all over, and we were proud to see that it is, development has gone right across the country.
No, it is a
It
good...
was not in a particular district or a particular electorate like in the past. Now we see it cross north to east, south to west.
I'm confident, Minister, students would be quite happy to have a tab in their hands when they go for their A-level examination and sit for their A-level exams next year. However, does the government have a plan? That is my question to you. Is the curriculum going to change? What are these students going to do with these tabs? How would the teachers teach them how to use these tabs? Would the teachers have the know-how how to use these tabs? What is the thinking? Is it just being introduced for the sake of being brought to Sri Lanka and given to the students? That's the question.
I don't think that is at all the case, because what we looked at, the enhanced knowledge. While the teachers are training their knowledge, imparting their knowledge, here is a free flow that you can go and learn as much as you can on your free will. That is what we basically wanted to give it to them. So I would say that it is our actual intention is to walk the talk. And that's what we intend doing.
So this is going to be done annually?
Yes, not only done annually, it will be improved annually. This is A-level grade 1, next year will be grade 1 and 2, or the year 1 and 2, and then you'll move down the line. I hope within the next 3-4 years that we will be able to give every child a tab. I mean, practically possible. There are no point just giving to, play some games.
Minister, also with regard to, give me some clarification on the taxation on the unit trust schemes that your government intends to bring in. Would this in any way discourage investments taking place?
Well, unit trust is, what is unit trust? Unit trust is a mode of investment that is used by small players on the stock exchange through professionals. And that is what the full benefit is, what needs to be run through unit. But what in the past was corporate companies were hiding their, or they were using that as a refuge or a mode to protect their taxation or erode their taxation. So what we did was we blocked the avenues of they trying to seek refuge of this, and we imposed a tax on corporate. But individuals will have a tax-free return.
The individuals will have a tax-free return?
Individuals will have a tax-free.
However, the corporates will have to pay taxes?
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Corporates don't need to be playing out in the unit trust.
Thank you very much.
Unit trust is only for small investors.
Thank you very much, Minister, for the clarification as well. I open the floor for questions. Let's start off with Faraz. Yes, Faraz.
Minister, on the 4th of October, the Cabinet approved 847 million for compensation for the persons affected by the floods. That's 586,731. That works out about 1,443 per person. You can buy one bag of cement, 10 blocks of bricks, for example. But Golden Key depositors got 6 billion last year, and I think this year you've got about 4 billion coming to them. This will be about 12 times what the flood victims got. Why should the state pay for the mistakes of some private corporation?
Faraz, I seriously think your information source needs to be corrected. Because what you mentioned about the flood victims is completely wrong. They are paid almost as much as 7 billion rupees, and another 12 billion owing to the bureaucratic inefficiency, they are not being paid. We, as you know, last time we paid 300 million for natural disasters, and this time we have been richly rewarded.
So Minister, this on the 4th of October, that's wrong, is it?
Let me just answer that one. So on that particular basis, what we basically was that we have a 300 million to protect 10 billion. The 10 billion was basically enhanced to 15 billion this day. The last floods brought in roughly 5, 6, 7 billion paid off, and another 3 to 4 billion to be collected. Now, that particular one was one incident, and I think you're mixing up the Salava one for that one. In October, what was approved for the total payment for Salava, which was another fire that took place where they lost out 2,200 houses, and only the cost impact for that totally is 2,200 billion. And of that, 1,400 was the approval that was given, the balance to be paid. Once again, the government was ready, willing and able to make payment, while the bureaucracy was grappling, signing 30, 40 checks a day, as opposed to signing 500, 600 checks a day.
The bureaucracy is being represented by
So how much did these victims get?
That is exactly what I'm saying. The bureaucracy needs to be woken up, and that's what we are basically doing. That is where things don't happen. The governments are intended giving money. Mr. Anurayapa, Minister, Sushil Premajayan, myself, Prime Minister, President, we were all on the board. Go in there and approve things in a week. But it took almost 3-4 months.
What's the point of having a cabinet if that's the case, if there is bureaucracy taking place? What's the point of changing the government if there is bureaucracy taking place, Minister?
What has to do to a bureaucracy if they are not functional? You have that lower end which is wanting to work, and the middle level which basically gives command, sometimes dysfunctional. And that is what we are basically getting things done. That's why we are going into digital technology, because you basically have the agriculture fertilizer. Today everybody gets their share direct to a bank transfer. You don't need anybody having a clerk signing this, taking 4-5 days. In a second you give it to them. That is where things are happening. So that then you are able, why did we basically make the economy digitalized? Because we want everybody transparently able to know what is going on. The Samudri recipient, we basically pay 43 billion. 18 billion spent to administer that 43 billion. So 61 billion.
Minister, given what you're saying, then the people have to first of all change the bureaucrats or those who are really doing the job rather than the governments in question.
Absolutely. That's why we are basically taking all the time and attention to ensure that we basically get that modernized.
Why not change them? You have worked in the private sector. Why not change them?
Well, you're going to do it through human element, no? How can you basically, like last, you can say if you don't work, we'll lift you in a white van. We don't do that type of thing.
You don't have to lift them on a white van, that's for sure, Minister.
Well,
you can obviously transfer them or change them.
If you basically say this is the way to do it, and you're going to do it, and they, instead of doing it, they basically don't do it, what are we going to do? Take them to court?
Then what is the point of having a new government? That's my question to you, Minister.
Meets the people. There are 7.
But your promise changed on the 8th of January.
So that is what we are doing. We are doing changes. You have seen unbelievable changes that are there. Whether it's democracy, whether it's human rights, whether it is judiciary, whether it is the police, whether it's a sense of transparency.
How long must the people wait for, Minister?
What are they waiting for? We are only saying...
You just spoke about the Salava
So we are basically saying how quickly we want to get it done and where the problems are broken down.
Minister, you are saying that the Salava incident you signed and the ministers in charge did in 1 week, and then the bureaucrats are sitting on it, and then 45 days they were sitting on it, and they only signed 45 checks a week. That's one of the incidents. That's an example that you just gave.
Yeah, so
why must the people wait for?
So that's exactly where we like the media also going and showing. You all have reported that. You all have reported on what we have come and taken a decision. You have nicely, spicely asked questions to us, and you got the answer. And when it was shown, then even certain protests were taken off because they said, yes, the government has done the share. That is where the things are. So now what is happening is, If you look at agriculture fertilizer, going to the doorstep. If you're looking at school uniform, going to the doorstep. So as a result, you don't have an intermediary or a person sitting in the middle making a judgment which takes 2 to 3 months. That's the difference.
Minister, being in the opposition for a very, very long time and being in power only for a few years since 1994, does the UNP still believe that they are in the opposition?
We'll be in government. Why do we need to feel that we're in opposition?
Every time saying that it's in the past, there's bureaucracy, we are trying to change. Emotions and sentiments that are being expressed on that sort. People start believing, okay, are they in the government or are they in the opposition?
Well, government was given to us only 18 months ago. In real terms, it was only 12 months ago because a government was given in September 2015. Yes. August 17th, but the government was given only on the 2nd of September. So likewise, you basically have changes that take place. Even a budget, it takes 1 year to have its benefit coming along. So yes, there are certain structural weaknesses, but we believe that the judiciary must do their work, the police must do their work, and the politicians must show the way forward.
Minister, I want to come back to the matter of the cabs. Have tenders been called?
We are yet to pass the budget on the 10th of...
But have you made exploratory bids to see how much the cost is?
That's why I said we basically looked at 5 billion.
What's the procurement procedure that will be followed once it is approved at budget? What's the procurement procedure that's going to be followed?
As transparent as we could. You will have a procurement basis that will go on, which basically will be able to open out where the media is free to have what is on, and the process is they go into whether it is a cabinet tender, whether it is a department tender, ministry tender, and you follow the work.
Yes, Sonali.
Minister, natural disasters have cost the country billions of rupees each year. In the past, time and time again, we see how our people act with absolute surprise and disbelief whenever disaster strikes. Elsewhere in the world, funds are being invested in disaster risk reduction, resilience. But in Sri Lanka, the attitude is a little different because we react whenever a disaster takes place. So how do you envision that we can go forward, take the country forward towards disaster risk reduction, resilience, through the new budget as well?
Well, Sonali, if you looked at, you said yes in the past as well, saying, oh my gosh, there is a rain, there is floods, famine, etc. But last year, we recognized that we spent 3 to 4 billion on natural disasters. So we insured this. We insured for 300 million, we insured 10 billion of natural disasters that can happen. And God forbid, after we did that in May, you had the floods that took place. And we were able to collect almost 200 times the figure that we insured for. So that was the protective element we had done. Unlike the past where we talk, here we have action. And that's why I was able to give it figures when Faraz asked the question, that it was a Sala one and not for the floods. And if you Golden Key, I didn't really finish answering Faraz on that. Golden Key is once again an inheritance from the past. Now I used to tell, yes, that was the past government, so don't pay. There were almost 25,000-30,000 people who were deposited that were sucked dry by the former governor and the central bank, which basically ran amok. And when they basically have, out of their 100%, they get only 41%, and even that not paid. That's where we humanly came.
So you're paying more than 41%?
No, 41%.
So that's it.
That was what the Supreme Court told, which was ignored for the last 3-4 years. They kicked out Chirani Bandar Naik and they brought these people to salute and shout and clap and do. They still didn't get paid. So we could have easily said this is something of the past. No, we are human as well. So wherever possible, we'll assist.
I've got somebody asking, what is the status of the digital NIC? When will it come?
Well, the digital NIC now is for the last 7-8 months in tender process. And it goes from procurement to re-procurement to technical evaluation committee giving various things. We are still in the month. Now this is the 19th amendment which goes through the transparency. Now you have got to give 2 months, you got to open yourself up, you got to go through a process that is spelled out by the procurement commission. So that's what we are following.
And could you answer this, please? We're told that there's a loan facility from a Japanese bank, and my question for $1 billion to do with Section 3 of the highway, the Central Expressway. I'm wondering why the insurance premium is so high, 10.07% after the war. Why is it?
That's the reason. Owing to the past inhuman government, the government were put as a high-risk governing. The OECD basically tags you as a high-risk country, and on that we are number 6. So OECD of number 6 brings you the highest level of interest rates, and that is why you got to pay that. And in a matter of fact, the Prime Minister, myself, you're hoping to meet the OECD on January 20th at 2 o'clock to be precise, in order to see that we get a ranking which is in the range of 3 or 4, which will help reduce that by almost 80% of that.
So can't we wait until then?
What do you mean?
So can't we wait until that ratings comes down so we can pay less then?
So it's an automatic process. No, if you wait for tomorrow when the economy improves further, then things will be down. But if you wait for tomorrow, what will happen for today? Then you will report saying you're not doing anything. So we want to basically be, while doing that, move forward, get things happening simultaneously.
Minister,
Mr.
on the subject of the centralized pension scheme that you were talking about, where you're going to have multiple stakeholders and runs, has there been or will there be any consultation with the people who will be impacted by the decision, whether it is positive or negative, basically the EPF members? Is there any process that you have in mind to consult them?
And at the moment, there is no consultation. The future, we intend bringing that consultation. How do we do it? The stakeholders, the central bank, the finance ministry, the president, prime minister representative, unions and private sector people all put together. So 10-11 people together will make a common decision which is good for all concerned.
Welcome back to Face the Nation. Charita, all yours. Start.
Minister, I was talking about the withholding tax and the exemption, removing the exemption on tax payable on for senior citizens. What is your rationale behind this move?
Well, the rationale behind it is that after you reach the age of 65 or 60, there was a situation where even if you earn 10 million in interest, it was tax-free. What we looked was, anybody who's earning 150,000 per month is tax-free. And thereafter you have a gradual increase in the taxation. Now, why should, 150 is 1.8 million a year. That comes tax-free. If you get another 500,000, you only pay 2,000 rupees on that particular. So that was the basis that it went on. So even if you look at 4.5 million, we looked at, because there was a lady who basically posed the question, why is it this and that and all. I said, if you are earning 4.5 million rupees a year, your tax payment is only 360,000. Surely that is only not even 8%. Is that being grudged? So that was the reason why we corrected. There are billionaires who are using the age factor to get a tax-free return. So that is the reason why we opened it out and made it fair. You don't need to allow the taxpayer who is paying from a poor person to a taxpayer who is paying, as opposed to somebody who doesn't pay at all. Isn't that fair? We only want to equate equity.
Minister, when you first came in and you all imposed a one-off super gains tax, do you have any such plans for the primary dealers market?
Primary?
For the primary dealers, they seem to have made a lot of money. Are you going to impose a super gains tax on them too?
We have, for the first time, we have at 28% when it was a preferential treatment before.
So they're going to be paying tax now?
Otherwise?
All primary dealers?
Anybody, primary dealers.
So they're not exempt, and they
No.
won't be exempt?
No.
Thank you.
Minister, there was some concerns with the
special pension for primary dealers and bond issues, I can see.
There was some concerns about the corporate tax rate of 14% for whether it will be. There was some lack of clarity on whether this will impact the ICT and business process outsourcing sectors. Will it be impacting them as well? Because this is a fledgling industry. If it goes from exempt to 14%, will they be able to?
No, that was mischievous use. It was not the intention, and it remains zero.
It remains zero for the ICT and BPO sector as well. Thank you.
Sonali? have a question for the minister, or?
Well, Minister Karunanayaka, I'd like to ask you a question about the foreign income we gain through our workers, the migrant workers who we send. Time and time again, year on year, we send our women overseas to the Middle East, and they come back in coffins, they come back brutally beaten up, raped, molested, they come carrying babies with them. Why haven't we been able to find a solution to this issue? Why do we need to depend on them for our income? Why? And why aren't we moving towards a different direction?
Well, Sonali, it is not that we forcefully send, they go. Now, why do they go? Because they are unable to make
But we have to make better protect them.
That's what I'm saying. We don't make the necessary earning capacity here. So what we have done now is that before they go, firstly, if it's a mother with children less than X amount of years, we have debarred them from going. It has to be a consensual family approach to go. And also a minimum of $350, which roughly is about 45, 50 to about 55, 60,000 rupees. So that no, you don't send people for the sake of sending people. We want them to have their family unit, live happily here rather than go out and be slaves outside. So that was the first step that we did. Secondly, Sonali, we have, and thank God, I think Mrs. Tarata Atukorale is doing a yeoman service. I have yet to hear a major disaster like the Rizana type of situation, which nothing happened. There are one or two beaten up cases, but they are not only women, even the men get beaten and sent back. So it is a case of improving that human rights that they expect us to perform, we are expecting them also to perform the same. But at the moment, all due action is taken in order to correct those anomalies that are taking place. We are given insurance covers, we are forcing them, but there are still elements that go without, Sunal, to be very frank. You know, here we tell, this is the law, this is what you got to get, this is the minimum wages you got to get, but they still go through the back door. And I guess we must make those absolute criminal offense. Because not only the person who sends them, but also who partakes in going.
Minister, how does it go through the back door? I'm just
sorry, do you mind just one more question I'd like to answer, because it was very pertinent, because we get roughly $8.2 billion. There was a drop during the ISIS problem, but it's picked up again. On that basis, you know, actually the minimum rate that we are given is to ensure that we extract something back. They like to go and work for 30,000, example in Qatar as a security officer, when they can get 45,000 here. But the feeling that they are overseas and, you know, basically freedom from everything gives the feeling to go there and be slaves. So that's what we are changing. Minister, and your question?
Yeah, Minister, do you then say that there are legal loopholes in the Sri Lankan legal system which need to be rectified? Is that what you're saying?
No, Sunal, there is no recourse to fall back. They just go. There is not a written statute that you must get this, this, this. It is certain conditions that you have got to oblige before those employment bureau members have to send them.
But shouldn't punitive sanctions be imposed, increased, just like the traffic fine?
Perfectly correct. We have done that, and that is the process. But there are still people, as I asked, and I was questioned as to how through the back door. When you say you have got to get a insurance certification to go, they go on a temporary visa, get a job there and don't pay it. Because they try to say, because that is all paid by the employer. So why do you want to take that risk? It is a job intermediary that is basically the foreign employment company that sometimes try to short circuit this.
But going forward, how do we rectify this situation?
Well, I guess you are very pure asking that question, and I need to give a crystal clear answer. All I could basically say is we are doing every possible step in order to eradicate that. And I think finally we have to end up by saying, if you don't comply with X, Y, Z, you know, you can't leave the country. To that level we'll have to bring it to. You're only protecting the family unit, which otherwise, you know, the children lose their father or mother, and that, you know, family bondage breaks down. You know, it's a complete divide. Money is not everything. That's why we are trying to ensure that we are a middle income country on low wages.
So more needs to be done.
More needs to be done. You need to pay that high element.
Minister,
Sorry, can I?
yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. One of our regular viewers on Newsline is asking us to ask you about withholding tax and quoted debt. Will it be applied retrospectively?
Sorry for us again.
Withholding tax, will it be applied retrospectively to quoted debt?
Well, you're, I think, referring to the debenture issue that is there, debentures which are issued. What we are going progressively, what the interest that you get will be taxed. Progressively, not in the past.
Okay, so no retrospective.
retrospective.
Thank you.
Minister, could you shed some light on the investment status of Hambantota? Because there's all kinds of reports again saying that 2,500 Chinese firms that is investing. Then there's a report of $8 billion US dollar investment.
Okay. Thank you very much for posing that. But now that you answered that question, Taudi, I need to go back into a little of the past, because otherwise it will be meaningless to give the answer into the future. You know, why is Hambantota? Hambantota had all the investment of the country going to one electorate, one district, and you had a disproportionate investment for uneconomical economic return. You know, you invest in Mattal Airport, 27,208 million, which is 27 billion, and you had a loss of 13,600 million in year 2015. Likewise, you had the Hambantota port, which had an investment of 174 billion, that is 174,125 million. You had a loss of 37,200 in year 2015. Why am I saying this? It's the capital amortization and the interest component and the operating loss of the port. So when you look like that, for Hambantota Convention Centre, Lotus Tower, Sri Lankan Airlines, Surya Weber, those 8 items, we lose 217 billion. We lose, not the investment, 217 billion 325. Now this is a loss for the opportunity cost of the money tied up or the lost in operation activity. So we are paying the sins of all the idle assets that are there. You have Hambantota port, which basically has, you know, couple of ships that only brings roll on roll off vessels will bring cars. So as a result, the Colombo port has to go and pay as much as 8 to 9,000 million a year in order to debt service that. So what we did was, we are basically bringing equity into that debt. So as a result, the loan gets paid off, or you have money in hand to pay for other capital expenditure as opposed to loans that have been taken. So these are the areas that we basically look at Hambantota. And there was a phenomenal, I would say, interest shown in Hambantota development, where the port, which basically is to be equity partnership with SLPA, and this company will take on the complete debt of $1.4 billion. They'll be paying 80% and paying X amount of share onto that. So that's the way we are overcoming our debt to equity. So that's the process that we intend, and there is a stupendous interest in Hambantota. Likewise Trincomalee, likewise in megapolis in the western region, likewise in Galle, and basically in the hill country in Kandy. Those are the areas that they are looking at. So we want to have a sustainable development across the country on that basis. Now, I'll mention another thing, like the Nilwala Ganga, which President highlighted a week ago, and I must say that you gave publicity to that. You know, you have spent 4,012 million rupees from December 31st, 2014 to January 7th, 2015. In 7 days you spent 4,012 million rupees, and we don't know where it is paid for what purpose. You give a paper coming in today, it is paid tomorrow, and you don't have even 1 inch of soil being cut on that process. So 4,112 million rupees gone where? Now questioning this, is this political victimization? People want to know. So these files are getting unearthed by the day. And this will have an answer. We will be reporting tomorrow to Cabinet, and the President and the Prime Minister can take his due course of action on these type of things. These are files that have been hidden. I mean, you all are asking whether we are slow. No, sometimes the files are not there. There is no corroborative evidence for the past, but the expenditure is made. That is the irony. That is. Then NSB, you had monies been taken, 8.85 fixed interest on loans that are there for $1,000 million. Now of that, they went on a roadshow saying these for road development, for waterworks, etc. But they used it for political activities. Now we have to pay the sins of this. We have to pay the debt servicing of this. Impairment last year alone was 900 million rupees. Now 900 million rupees, what couldn't you have done? Job creation, house building, agriculture. So these are the things that we have got to inherit, but as you mentioned, this is what we have got to do. So I will quote, I'll end by telling one thing. In a paper on the 28th of July 2014, it is being quoted that Ports Authority Chairman, Hambantota port earnings to exceed 15 billion, in 2014. In 2015, or in 2014, the loss is 7,725. I'm sorry, 18,417. The loss in 2015, 37,200 million. Now, this is the person who mentioned that it is a 15 billion earnings. Where on earth do they do this type of thing? Now, what do you expect to do? You are saying this is a loss, go and bomb Hambantota port? No, capital, the taxpayers' money is invested in it. So we have got to get this to economic return. And that's what we are basically doing.
But Minister, you can, find fires and fires, but then if the process, if you can't fast track the accountability process.
It is fast track, accountability is not in our hands. It's not in the hands of the media, it is the judiciary. So how fast? And I can see things are in the last 3 months improving, increasing. That is the situation.
Minister, I have one final question to ask you. The Chinese ambassador has been quite outspoken about your stance on Chinese loans. Would you make a clarification for viewers of Face the Nation to say what kind of is this tough Chinese diplomacy, or is it a misunderstanding? What is it?
Well, I don't want to be undiplomatic. The foreign countries come here, they have their representative through the ambassador. He made a statement, next week he corrected it. Why don't you do the correction as well? Then I don't need to answer that question. So I think I want to be professional in saying so. People make mistakes, and if they correct it and say that that was not the intention, why do I need to embark upon a wrong tree at this moment? While I appreciate it, China does a lot of investments. We appreciate that, and we continue wanting their investment. But remember, we are a sovereign nation, and we would like to be treated as a sovereign nation irrespective of the size. And that's what I basically was speaking. We can be small, but we are as the same in size as a big nation.
Minister,
I have been appointed to be finance minister for Sri Lanka and not for any other country.
Minister Karunaika, I admire the fact that you are talking very high about Sri Lanka's sovereignty. The international community is now trying to press for human rights charges against Sri Lanka. Why not talk about sovereignty then and say, we are Sri Lanka, we are a very sovereign state, do not investigate us, we are not going to cooperate, this is our country. Why not say that then?
That has been very categorically stated by the President, the Prime Minister and the Cabinet. I think it's only past statements that have been used in the present context.
Are we going to sell...
These are the people who want to go into electric chairs and, found that they got protected when our government came in.
Are we going to sell the Mattal airport to the Chinese?
I don't think we need to sell. We have a partnership is what we want to do.
Partnership for $1 billion US, is that finalized?
Anybody, if somebody comes on North Korea, we bring in 1.5 billion, they'll have an edge over anybody else.
Minister,
but they must have a commercial proposition. Money is not everything. It has to be transparent, clear and visionary.
Mr. Karunaika, when we interviewed you just after the impeachment that took place earlier this year, around 7 months ago, you said that the capital gain tax will be introduced in Sri Lanka in September. However, it did not take place.
It takes place in April 1st because...
April 2017.
Yeah, because there's a time you can't just start it anytime you want.
Okay.
So that's why it is 1st of April. And that was spelled out even in the budget this time.
Absolutely. You said that capital gain tax will be introduced with effect from the 1st of April 2017. So it is going to come into play next year, for sure.
Yes.
Yes, Faraz, before...
Now people will ask as to why capital gains, but capital is a gain. gain needs to be taxed. And why the government puts infrastructure and land which is zero value with the investment becomes tomorrow X plus 20, you know, why are we not taking a percentage of the X plus 20? But not if it is for inheritance, which is over 10 years, then there is no capital gain. It is in speculative nature is what is taxed.
Minister, right after your budget speech on the 10th of November this year, the Colombo stock market had negative outcomes for nearly 2 weeks, constantly. Why?
But then the positive element now you don't talk of.
I'm talking right after the budget speech.
What to do? So they have correct element. Some act quickly, some take a little time, some never see it
Some
until
say
they're
there's
forced
still
to see it.
political uncertainty in Sri Lanka.
Well, I think only people who are basically don't want to see or who don't want to hear what is good will think like that.
Is everyone in the government?
Anybody who is want to take advantage of a situation would definitely take, because fundamentally we are very well placed.
Is everyone in the government pulling on the same direction?
Absolutely.
However, you just said earlier that the Minister of Labour is...
No, I didn't say that.
You said
I said that what he said was out of context, because he had been taken out of context, because he is in cabinet, he knows what is being done.
Okay, Minister.
So,
As far as I'll give you a question and then we'll wrap up.
Minister, just now we talked about capital gains and so on, and the speculative nature. When members of parliament sell their duty-free permits and they make a profit on that, is that subject to tax?
Yes.
They must pay tax?
Yes.
Good. And then final question, why is the dollar 151 or a little bit more?
Once
When's
again,
it coming down?
your source is 148.58 today.
Right, okay.
So you are either...
It was 131 before.
very negative.
Well,
It
what's two
was
rupees
7
between
rupees.
friends?
It was 7 rupees also in a particular time. So if you basically look at...
So where is it going to settle?
So it will basically set at the time when foreign remittances come in, there will be inflows of dollars. It will basically strengthen. In 2002, when UMP took over, we had 123 rupees, or sorry, 114 rupees rupee to a dollar. It appreciated to 99, and the same is what we believe. The investments will come in, and with that fiscal consolidation, we are borrowing less. So as a result, there will be more dollars in hand. So as a result, there will be no need for monies to go out.
Right.
So into that
your
fact that you
prediction...
have money is coming in and strengthen the rupee. And that is where we are, in an import-led country, where demand is limited in nature, because just because the rupee depreciates, you won't have a higher export value. These are the areas which we are trying to consolidate and strengthen the rupee, so the benefit will come with no import inflation coming in with devaluation.
So when do you think? A considered view.
Beg your pardon?
A considered view.
Well, I think starting from February, March, April, you see the benefits coming in.
Thank you very much, Minister Karunaka. We're going for a short commercial break, and when we come back, it's the final round. For us, where do you change your dollars? Is it the black market? It's 153.25 in the black market.
Is it?
Yes, it is.
There's that place called, Hospital Road or Hospital Lane in Fort,
We're going for a short commercial break. When we come back, it's the final round of Face the Nation. Faraz has been dealing with the dollars. Faraz, Bond? We're going for a break. When we come back, it's the final round of Face the Nation. Stay connected. Stay with us. Welcome back. This is Face the Nation, the final round. We are in conversation with the Minister of Finance of the Democratic Socialist Republic of Sri Lanka, Ravi Karunaka. Minister, MP Namal Rajapaksa, speaking in Parliament, said that my father is very good at constructing establishments, constructing institutes, and Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe is good at selling. What has your government planned for the year 2017 in terms of constructing institutes, in constructing infrastructure needed for this country? Your time starts now.
Well, Honorable Namal Rajapaksa would have mentioned in the context of what he feels, but he didn't say that construction on borrowed money with a return of 0.5% and 8% is not logical borrowing. And that is why he basically said the selling. Selling is that it was not selling, it is partnership that we go in order to earn a 10% for the 8% interest that we are already taken on. So that is the reason why illogical investments have brought logical sense, and that is what we basically are correcting at this moment. So I mean, if I go to define further, that is one example. Mattala Airport even worse than that. So economic sense doesn't prevail in some. And that's why it is like you have somebody who basically borrows on leasing or hire purchase and says, I have got a car, I have got a house. But you know, you're paying on a monthly basis. Suddenly the parents basically that taken this, you know, falls dead. And the children are saying, no, I have asset, how are you going to, he didn't know that 2 months we don't pay, it is seized. That's the type of inheritance we got. So it is not construction and selling, it is illogical construction with logical conclusion, and that's what we are taking to.
Minister Karunayaka, is this budget based on the whim and fancy of the International Monetary Fund, ADB and the World Bank?
Never. It will not be tolerated, and we also proven. IMF said let's have a budget deficit of 4.7, we improved it, 4.6. We basically had a revenue which they said can be X amount, we had it improved. So we don't need foreign elements to tell us how to run the economy. We know it best. We have a talented Sri Lankan team. They were suppressed up to January 8, 2015. But now we are harnessing their talent. But one thing I must say, if it is white skin or black skin or any skin, if what is told is good and good for us, we'll take it. If North Korea comes and says, you know, reduce your expenditure, increase your revenue, we'll do it. You don't need to IMF to tell that.
Minister, however, the former governor of the Central Bank, Arjuna Mahendran, writing a letter to the IMF, had said that taxes would be increased and the people will have to pay more money beginning next year. And when you look at your budget, income tax rate has been increased, corporate income tax has been increased, personal income tax has been increased, withholding tax has been increased, pay tax has been increased, capital gain tax to be introduced next year, the taxes on unit trust has been increased, has been imposed. You see all these things taking place.
Well, you are taking a particular statement. That letter is signed by the finance minister and the governor then. At that particular moment, you didn't say that taxes, we said a higher tax compliance would be there. That is why 599,000 files have increased to 1.4 million files, which is almost 150% increase. And on that particular one, as much as you say the taxes that were increased, you could say the excise tax, which was earning 2 billion a month, now earns 13 billion. So 650% increase. Where was all this money going to? One family, one member, somebody unknown? How is it that we are collecting 13 billion a month when others were collecting only 2 billion? Why is customs now collecting 850 billion when it only collected 400 billion? Where were these monies that were going on? That is the revenue that we are bringing forward. Now, as much as you are saying the taxes, if you see fertilizer subsidy for tea, coconut, Samud is 48 billion, transport route subsidized, you have the Ranaviro getting allocations of money. Likewise, we have 48 expended. You know, the reason you can go on, uniforms that are being given, tablets that are being given, you know, free children getting health, medical insurance being given. None of these are being factored in. All this, you have revenue, you have expenditure, and you maximize that rupee for the benefit of the people. That is what we are basically doing. So, if you look at the waste is completely reduced to bare minimum, revenues are maximized to tolerable limits, and here is a budget that 100,000 rupees and below did not get a single increase. Only 100,000 and plus. That is a figure that there was some imposition of some charges. Why I said 100,000 plus, the pay is come 100,000 per month and above. So, what is the budget from independence today that you had a budget without a single cent increase for people earning 100,000? How many people earn 100,000? Almost 85% of the country. So, what are we basically looking at, and why are we basically looking at it cynically? Look at the positive side. We have come here to undo. You can't unscramble the scrambled egg. So you have got to go from where we inherited it. And that's where we are correcting, rectifying, eradicating the anomalies and putting it hope to where it was hopeless, and bringing a sense of direction when there was no direction, and not reducing corruption, eradicating corruption, so that you meet the President's and the Prime Minister's target, which was the wish that was given to the people. And I appreciate and I look forward to media and all people giving its giving us a fair share in doing things without criticizing for the sake of criticizing. But I thank you for giving me this opportunity, which was very constructive, and I appreciate the freestyle that you asked, and I hope the same freestyle I answered, because this is the best way to communicate to the people. We can only say, we can say the people will decide.
Let the people be the judge.
We report, they decide.
Let the people be the judge of the views that you expressed, Minister. Thank you very much for joining us this evening. Just 5 more days to go until the third reading of the budget comes through. I hope next year would be a very fruitful year for the government as well as the people in Sri Lanka. Hope for the best. Let 2017 be an year that brings you more money. Thank you very much, Nadeem. Thank you very much, Sonali. Thank you very much, Faraz. Thank you very much, Charitha, for joining us this evening. Tomorrow morning, 7 a.m., who's our guest, Faraz?
We are getting a representative from UNICEF, and we're going to talk about violence against children.
So you don't only talk about bonds, do you?
Oh, not at all. Not at all.
Well, for a local version of Donald Trump, I can see. and also I look forward to MTV and Sirius' fullest support. Give us the necessary credence in able to get things done, and we'll ensure that we do it on behalf of the people in the best honest way that we could.
Thank you very much, Minister, for your thoughts as well. You said about Faraz being Donald Trump. Faraz, I hope you will be running for the next year presidency next time, and you might even clinch it, according to Minister Caroline.
Larry King myself.
Thank you very much. A budget is telling your money where to go instead of wondering where it went. 2017. Let's hope and pray you are going to be rich next year. Or will you be fired, as Donald Trump always says? Let's see how it goes. Next year, 2017. Hope for the best. Take care and good night.